What is up, wrestling fans? And all rise for an all-new edition of the Parts Unknown podcast. I'm, of course, your ringside Intel Tribal Chief, Jason Burgos. And with me, as always, is Florida's Big Papa Pump and resident podcast wise man, the one and only Jose Maldonado. Baby Blue, it's great to be back together for Parts Unknown podcast. It's been too long.
As always, man, always great catching up, man. But, say my name and I will appear. You know what I mean? Happy to come on the show and talk shop with you, man. It's great times, a lot of hot stuff coming up, going on, a lot of stuff to catch up with. So we got to bring it to the people. We got to bring the people into this and, a lot to cut it up, man. A lot to cut up on.
And my apologies, we've been away for a few weeks. I was going through a move's all done, so hopefully we'll get some podcasts regularly going consistently. We're gonna do some, of course, the more live ones. On this week's episode, got a lot of fun topics to talk about. One is we're gonna jump to quickly, but first, it's the idea of maybe does the new version of the Bloodline with Solo Sikoa deserve a wise man? We're going to talk about the big news about John Cena announcing his retirement tour for next year and what possibilities could come from that. We're going to talk about the signing of Stephanie Vaquer from CMLL and New Japan fame to WWE. Also, like the fact that Giulia, another Japanese star, is also joining the company and what that means for WWE, what that means for the women's divisions, all that kind of stuff. We're also going to talk about these kind of rumors that there might be a United States and Intercontinental Women's Championships instituted in WWE in the near future. Also, these rumors about connecting Shane McMahon with AEW. People thinking Vince is going to maybe buy AEW. All these kind of weird things. Also, we'll end it off with some talk about how the WWE has presented the Wyatt Sicks so far. But circling back, let's first start and talk with something I thought about today, and then also after SmackDown just went off the air when we recorded this a little while ago, because they're very much with Solo Sikoa's version of Bloodline. They're having obvious kind of similarities to the original version. He's the tribal chief. Then you got Tangaloa and Tamatanga as like the kind of new evil version of the Usos. Now you have Jacob Fatu. He's calling him his enforcer. He's like him, the version of him. The one element they're kind of missing is a wise man. Now, a case obviously could be made. This group doesn't need that. They're kind of, wild renegades that doesn't fit them. But considering that he's trying to almost make the similar version of what Roman had, I can see a wise man being brought in. The question is, who do you get for that? Because Paul was an interesting choice when he first originally got put together with Roman. I love the idea. It made a lot of sense. He's got a history of taking young stars or in their prime stars to a different place, a different level and stuff like that. So it makes sense, especially for Roman's first kind of heel turn as a solo act. But with this group, with Solo, it's a little different. So I'm going to throw a few names out there. I want to know what you think, and for the people that watch this, what they think. But first one that came to mind, just because he's relevant right now because of the new documentary series going out, is Eric Bischoff. I thought Eric Bischoff would be interesting. He's got a history with Paul Heyman. He's kind of diabolical. Just like Paul, he's not a part of the Bloodline, but he's got a deep history steeped in business. Another one I thought was Rikishi. Can't be more wise man to Solo than his father. And that would be quite a twist. I don't know if he's physically able. And the other one I thought about, again, going to the family ties, is Haku. Both his sons are in this new version of the Bloodline. Jose, what are your thoughts? First, do you think a wise man fits? 2, do any of these options make sense to you? Or 3, is there somebody else that you thought about that might be an even more interesting fit for this?
Yeah, I'm of the first school of thought that you mentioned, kind of agreeing with you, where I don't think it's necessarily, a good fit for this group. You know what I mean? They do seem to be a little more physical, a little more roughshod, a little more, kind of outlawish. And, wise man, not to say there would be a bad thing, but it's not really necessary to the package. Heyman added so much to Roman, and it just fits so well. But if they were to go that route, the names you mentioned would be interesting, like Bischoff. A lot of relevance there. Great mic skills, he's a great talker. Got a lot of history in the business. It's a little farther back now, but to your point, the WCW thing is always going to be talked about, and he's still around, and he would be a great foil for Heyman. Like having him and Heyman going back and forth. When Heyman comes back, would be a terrific fit. Rikishi's a natural fit with the family. He fits in every regard except one, which is that he's a terrible talker. I don't think that would be. He wouldn't add much to the package. I don't want to a Mike and Rikishi's hand on a regular basis. But family wise, that would be great. But if they're gonna go that route, I do think Haku is a much better fit. Haku is cooler. Haku hasn't really had the chance to be showcased in this light, at least not in WWE. Like he's a great worker back in the day, but was not necessarily a main eventer, but he has this aura about him. You hear all the stories about Haku was the baddest man in the business, and by all accounts, it was just like the nicest guy otherwise. But he would be a great fit to this package, lends to their physicality as well. Of the three, I think Haku would be the most interesting choice. Bischoff would be a terrific fit. I wouldn't be mad at that, but yeah, I don't think it's necessary for this group in particular. You know what I mean? And if anything, it might be a detriment to Solo because he's kind of coming into his own as the leader and kind of talking a little bit more on a regular basis. So taking that away from him might be a little detrimental to him, especially when they're trying to make him a really main guy. So it's kind of a sink or swim on a weekly basis. Might be more beneficial to him to not have a wise man and have it put more on him to where he has to kind of succeed week to week. So
yeah. I agree 1,000%. And also wasn't Haku maybe for a short stint? Wasn't he like a part of the Bullet Club or offshot of the Bullet Club at one point for New Japan?
Yeah, he was down with them for a little bit, coming out when they were the firing squad and rolling with his boys, so they could bring that kind of presentation over here, which they kind of have been doing already. You know what I mean? So just add him to it. I don't think anybody would be mad at that, and he would fit right in. And people love Haku, so. And if he needs to throw down a little bit, I'm sure he'd still be able to. I'm not sure how old he is, but I don't think anybody's going to question the toughness of that guy. So he'd be a different kind of wise man. That's why I'd like him to be the choice of the three that you put out there.
Yeah, he'd be, and that just shows you because the Bullet Club was always so good because it like rode that line of staying cool for so long, and the fact that they were willing to bring him in just shows you even though he's an older guy, he's just because of that history, just this badass kind of guy. He's just cool no matter what generation you are, and I can see him or Rikishi or even Bischoff like that. Instead of being a talker like Paul was for his crew, more like this wise man that just kind of whispers in the ear, says something, and then the words come out and stuff like that. The actions follow that. But yeah, it'd be interesting. I'd like to see it, but if it doesn't happen, it makes total sense, and it's fine the way it is. Going on from that, our next topic is John Cena at Money in the Bank. He announces that 2025, not this year. There's a lot of confusion that people think, he announced his retirement is done. No, in 2025, he's going to go pretty much on a year-long retirement tour and check off a lot of boxes and do a lot of fun things in what should be really interesting. Going to be reportedly going to be a big part of Raw's launch on Netflix, to break new ground there. The first thing before we get into what may be to come, what do you feel is John Cena's lasting legacy? I mean, this is a Mount Rushmore person. This is a huge star in this industry for a long time. Like, when you think of John Cena, what are your thoughts on his impact on the professional wrestling industry?
I consider John Cena the greatest face of the company has ever had. Not necessarily the biggest, I would put Stone Cold as maybe the biggest star they've ever had. Hogan was a great face of the company, but I think Cena even surpassed him in terms of representing the company in a positive light and lasting impact on the business. The dude was a top guy for 15 years, give or take. That's an unprecedented run on top. And we mean on top. He was the guy for pretty much all of that. A lot of other names came went in and out. A lot of names that he was rivals with, like Orton and things like that. But the buck stopped with Cena for the longest time, and I really think that he presented it in a way that people are going to be trying to emulate for years to come. Cody has talked about how big of a fan he is of John Cena, and I think Cody is following that that blueprint of how to be, presentable in terms of outside of the company to other endeavors and things like that, and presenting himself in a way that's a little more universal. And it's crazy because we talked about how reviled he was by a big segment of the fan base while he was in the business, but I think now it's universally recognized that he is one of the greatest of all time. He might have been a little underappreciated in his time on top, and people are going to miss him when he's gone. People have already kind of been missing his presence. When he comes back, he's pretty well received. So I think that's his legacy, is just he sucked through all the negativity, presented the company in a positive light, and came out looking like one of the greatest. And I think that's a hell of a act to follow for anybody else who wants to be the top guy following him.
I think without doubt, he's one of the greats. But for me, he's sort of this example of like a frustrating era in the company. And that's it. I mean, we had many conversations for years of throwing around terms Super Cena and all these kind of things, dominant wins, so many wins. But that said, he did have a lot of big losses. The Rob Van Dam at One Night Stand, CM Punk, he had some big losses that helped a lot of people. I just think he's kind of this big example of so many missed opportunities when Vince McMahon lost his fastball. And that's not John Cena's fault. It's just that he was the guy that, I mean, like, we're all looking at Roman Reigns now. It's like, oh man, yeah, by the time Roman's finished, he might be the best ever. And that's because of the heel turn. It's made him one of the great heels of all time, and now he's going to come back as a white hot babyface. Like, that opportunity was completely bungled by WWE for whatever reasons, and without doubt, John Cena was part of the company going public and becoming a $1 billion company. All these things are all important, but as a product the product at its best, a huge missed opportunity. I mean, Hogan went bad. Like, so many people went bad. Like, that was one of the few things that could have happened that really could have helped revolutionize the business of WWE for a little while with so much freshness, but they just stayed the course. And he was like this big stale piece of bread. Again, he did the best with what it, but in like the getting stale loaf of bread that WWE was for like a good 8-9 years until things started changing more recently. So, I mean, without that legend, but just that, what could we have done if we would have got heel Cena at his peak, and just, it's a shame. It's one of those missed things. It's like, Sting taking forever to go to WWE, and they're never getting Sting Undertaker. It's just one of those big WWE legendary what ifs. But moving on from there, that it's a big topic of discussion is who the matches that we want to see with John Cena in 2025. There's a lot of ways they can go. There's obviously that big, matzo ball the distance of 17 world championship that they go after that, and he breaks the record, all those kinds of things. But I'm gonna throw out some names, and maybe you have some other ones too. But for me, Gunther, CM Punk, the Rock trilogy, Braun Breaker to help Braun Breaker take it to another level. Cody, Logan Paul would be fun. Going back to Kevin Owens, that was such a big thing. AJ Styles, John Cena made AJ Styles. It'd be great to visit. Trick Williams is like really kind of that next big star on the horizon. And them interact would be great. Drew McIntyre, this new version of Drew McIntyre. LA Knight, like, what's 5 dream matches that you're really hoping for in this 2025 run to bring John Cena's career to an end?
Oof, man, that's a hell of a lineup to bring up to the plate to come through with Cena. But any one of those names would be fantastic. I think there's a couple of names that have to happen. I think Orton needs to happen at least one more time.
Okay,
I think that's his greatest rival, even if it's just
really?
I think so. I really do. Because I mean, Edge. Cena took Edge to that next level in terms of like heel status, and that's when the Rated R Superstar was at its hottest. Yeah. But in terms of like the number of matchups that they've had and the parallels that they had coming up together, and kind of side by side the different trajectories, I think Orton's the guy, and I'd love to see them mix it up even at least one more time, which is so funny to say because that was a rivalry that was burnt out on so many fans when it was actually happening. Yeah, but I think one more would be fun. Same thing with CM Punk. I think Punk being back in the company, Punk's pretty much said so much that he would like to mix it up with Cena one more time. I wouldn't mind. It doesn't necessarily have to be at a PLE. It could be at a on a Monday Night Raw, kind of a showcase match. At least one more time. If he's gonna make somebody, I would love for him to make Braun Breaker. Like, Braun Breaker has been on a fast rise. The feud with Sami Zayn has been great. He's the future of the company. Like, he's a future world champion. So if it's going to be one feud with Cena to help make a guy, I think Breaker needs to be that guy. Logan Paul would be a lot of fun. I can see Logan Paul and Cena doing one of the Saudi shows and having a little mini feud for that. It'd be a nice payday for the both of them, a nice showcase match, and the same way that Logan Paul had like a world title match in Saudi, and that was pretty much it. Same thing with Cena. Have a feud, have it be at Saudi, and be a showcase match. I don't think the Saudi fans would be mad at that. And for the fifth guy, AJ's on his last tour too. So him and AJ had made magic back in 2016. And to your point, like the Cena feud and the Roman feud made AJ in WWE, and to have them go at it one more time, I think would be a lot of fun. And their match at the Royal Rumble is mentioned amongst one of the best matches of the last decade. I definitely love that match. It's one of those rare. I think they never left the ring once, which is so rare to see. They just mixed it up so well inside. The fact that they got that much chemistry, I'd love to see that one more time. So yeah, I think those would be my 5, and yeah, I think that's a solid list.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. But like in terms of just big marquee appeal, if they don't talk about missed opportunities, I feel like if they don't do the Rock trilogy, that's a missed one. I mean, that's just straight money. They have a built-in thing that they only fought twice. Both have one victory over the other. This final boss version of The Rock versus Cena, retiree Cena. I mean, God, the magic that could come from that. That has to be a PLE thing that happens at some point in 2025. CM Punk, that just, so many interesting elements of that, and the fact that CM Punk wants it, I think that's a fun match. Braun Breaker's up there. Like I mentioned, in a thing for Ringside Intel, a video CM Punk matches. I mean, I feel like you can't have a match you have to see without having a match with Gunther. I mean, there's nobody, despite him not being a freak athlete, despite him not having a fancy move, there's nobody that's a better storyteller in the ring than Gunther. And one of the things that I turned and changed my opinion, I used to talk a whole bunch of crap on John Cena. We all talked about 5 moves of doom, but this guy, in the end of his career, especially like you mentioned, with AJ, with Punk, with a lot of people, Kevin Owens, this guy can have great matches. I think Gunther and Cena could be phenomenal, on the short level. But
and to add to that, really quick, at that point, Gunther might be world champ, so that could be a ready-made feud to where Cena 17 could come against Gunther. So that would be an awesome feud. Yeah, to your point, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, there's just so many fantastic options. I hope they really can maximize. I hope he can stay healthy. You never know. There's all these risks as what happens with an older wrestler. We saw with Edge pushing a little bit, but WWE is very smart. But yeah, and another one, Trick Williams. I think this a little interaction between Trick Williams and John Cena will go a long way to very much help Trick in his ruthless aggression with Cena and Angle kind of moment, just to get that rub. Just that would be a big for him. But of course, as always, wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, please like, share, subscribe, comment. Who are the people that you are hoping to see John Cena face in 2025 in this final year, this final run of his legendary career? Moving on from there, we're talking about people that are kind of getting into the WWE now, as opposed to legendary runs, 2-decade runs. And that the news broke this week that CMLL veteran, New Japan Women's Strong Style champion, former champion, Stephanie Vaquer. I hope I'm saying the right name. My apologies if I'm saying it the wrong way. She is headed to WWE, which is fascinating because she just went all out there to AEW for Forbidden Door, put on a banger with Sasha Banks, and dipped out to WWE right after. I can't say I know a ton about it, but I've seen some of her highlight reels and I've read a lot of things about it. And it seems like a great signing. It's funny that WWE lost out Ospreay, which was disappointing. They lost out Okada, which was disappointing. Jay White a few months even before those two. But they got Vaquer. They got Giulia from Stardom, which is another big one. She's going to be in NXT very soon. You are the wise man of this podcast. You have far more depth on various wrestling brands more than me. What's your scouting report on Miss Vaquer and also Giulia too, and why are they big additions to NXT or the main roster? Eventually wherever they end up on the WWE brands.
Yeah, no, I mean it brings an international flavor to what's already a very hot women's division. We've talked about how WWE over the last decade has, stepped up their game. They put their money where their mouth is in terms of the women's evolution, and it paid off big time. They made star after star after star, and you're seeing in NXT now, it's a machine down there. Like the recruiting process in terms of like the gymnasts and the other kind of athletes coming straight out of college into NXT has been paying off dividends. We're seeing that with the latest Miss Money in the Bank, with Tiffany Stratton, and a lot of the upcoming stars in NXT. Adding Stephanie and adding Giulia is just icing on the cake to that. They're taking it to another level. Now it's international. Some of the best stars in the world are coming in and just cementing this as the best women's division in the world. An argument can be made for Stardom and AEW. The AEW's had problems with the women's booking, but the talent is definitely there. and it's starting to come around in that regard. But I think this is the next evolution in that evolution, and they're going to be a really big part of that. And they want to really be a big part of that. It's so funny to me that Stephanie Vaquer's match with Mercedes Moné made Stephanie, and she went and got the bag with WWE. Like you said, it's just she really just jumped ship. They helped the recruiting process unknowingly and unwillingly, I guess. But I guess it's been reported that she never really entertained AEW in a serious way. Like WWE was always the goal, and here she is, and I think she's going to make a lot of big waves. So is Giulia. Pray for Roxanne Perez. That title is going to be, on the hot seat coming very soon. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. This is a really exciting time for the women's division. A lot of fresh young talent and a lot of talent coming up from all over the place. They're going to be showcased big time in the company.
And we've talked about this before, and they're always trying to look for that next big Mexican star to replace kind of Rey Mysterio and stuff like that, and just that audience. But they've never really had a female Mexican star. And we talked about maybe Thunder Rosa could maybe be that one day, but Stephanie's kind of just jumped her, and she's going to be that. She's going to get that opportunity to be that face for kind of women's wrestling, Mexican women's wrestling in WWE on a big scale. But it just shows you, man, the depth of the women's roster right now. That Carmella has been around a long time. Alexa Bliss has been around a long time. Becky's is out right now with her taking some time away. Sasha's been gone away for a while. Charlotte's been injured. Ronda Rousey, haven't missed a beat in this division, as good as ever. And all of these big names, Asuka, another one, and even before she got injured, she was kind of more of a lower level mid, she had a diminished role. And this roster has still been phenomenal, even without all of them, and now you're going to get, these other girls that are coming up from NXT and that two, international television matches. Amazing how far the women's division is coming WWE. But continuing on that tilt, there's been these rumblings and it's supposedly legitimately a serious thing being considered, and belts are possibly being made. And that is, there's always been talk about making a secondary title for the women's division. They finally got the tag titles. Now there's talk about maybe an intercontinental title and a U.S. women's title possibly being made and being introduced at some point. And going to my point about the roster is so deep, this is the time to do it. The roster has finally become deep enough that it makes sense. First, before we get into one other question about who could be the first champions, what are your thoughts on this? First of all, is it the right move? I'm sure we're both agreed it is the right move, but is it the right move to, one, make it women's US, women's intercontinental? Should they have made a new title, call this something else, like they have this world title kind of thing? Or maybe even should they have gone to the past and brought back the European title or the Divas title or something like that, and bring those back to the fold as these titles to make it fresh and unique instead of just the women's version of that?
Yeah, no, that's a good call. I mean, it's interesting because I'm not usually a fan of having too many titles. AEW kind of has that problem right now where it seems like everybody has a title. But in this case, I think it's necessary. There's a lot of talent there. And, I would love for them to just make feuds away from the title. I think that's something that could be done a little bit better. But with the title being mid-card title being presented, we get stuff like we see in NXT, like we just saw with Sol Ruka versus Kalani Jordan. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where it's just they wouldn't necessarily have a reason to face each other if it wasn't for the title. So a lot of situations like that could help showcase a lot of the women on the main roster. So yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it in this regard. And I would love to see something a little bit new. To your point, it's kind of derivative of seeing the women's titles kind of follow suit of the men's world title, women's world title, that kind of thing. I would love for them to get away from United States and Intercontinental and present something new. A European title would be interesting. A North American title in the NXT has been has worked great. I think that would be something to explore. It's maybe something I'm not thinking of. A television title that's a little passe, but something interesting. Maybe just to give them an excuse to showcase them on television a little bit more and kind of make that the running storyline. But yeah, I would love to see it. At this point, there's so many women that could be better utilized, and if the mid-card titles give them an excuse to do that, then I'm all for it. It gives a lot of people more things to follow, and gives the women more of an excuse to be on the show. So yeah, and I'm sure we'll see it sooner rather than later. There's way too many reasons not to at this point. To do it at this point.
And when those titles come, I mean, I think there's two names that stand out for me that I think, they will make a lot of sense as the first champions. One is Lyra Valkyria. I mean, I didn't follow her closely on NXT, but man, she's blown me away. She's just feels like such a complete package, and she comes across like the way she interacts with other performers and the way she presents herself when she comes over. She feels like a main eventer already. Like she just feels she has that confidence, that charisma, which is so amazing. But the other one, I don't care which title. Chelsea. You gotta give Chelsea this damn title, man. Like she didn't get Money in the Bank. That would have been fantastic. That would have been awesome. Okay, they need to give her money, but you gotta give her one of these secondary titles. If she's not gonna get the main title, you gotta give her one of these. But it'd be so fantastic. Give her a long reign where Piper's helping her win all the time. But that's what I gotta see. Are there any names that stand up for you that you like to see win these potential new titles?
Oh man, Chelsea! You mentioned Chelsea. Props to her for taking that table spot and Money in the Bank. My lord, man, that was amazing to see. She's just constantly proving herself over and over again. But honestly, like I'd like to see, oh man, like I wouldn't mind seeing Michin in the mix. You know what I mean? Like I've always been a fan of hers. She's kind of underutilized, and she's been kind of floating around, doing her thing in NXT lately, but having her be kind of the veteran presence in that mid card division, I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think that'd be a good spot for her. Lyra Valkyrie is an absolute slam dunk. Yeah, like she has the entire package. Yeah, so some of those names would be really interesting to see. Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark's another one that is just like terrific. Seeing Zoe in that mix, she's another one that just really needs an excuse to be showcased more. I love the introduction of Sonya Deville into the mix with her and with Shayna. I think that's a very fun trio. That's going to be very fun to follow, just being bullies, being badasses. I think that's going to be a really good stable that could really make some waves. And if a mid-card title comes into the mix, out of those three, having Zoe kind of be the title holder while Sonya and Shayna have her back, kind of Sonya pulling the strings, that'd be a really good package and ready-made money. So I'd love to see that.
As always, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, please like, share, subscribe. Let us know, what do you think about these possible new titles they're going to bring into the women's divisions? Who would you like to see champion? What do you think of these new international stars going to coming in and maybe NXT on the main roster? But moving on from there, continue on the rumors. Weird rumor the last couple of weeks. We didn't get to cover a couple of weeks ago, but it's still worth to talk about, is this idea that Shane McMahon may have some interest in being with AEW. Now, just rumor, but the AEW boss Tony Khan really didn't shoot it down when asked about it. He just made it seem like he'd be open to the idea, and then it got pushed further by like the true weird old gray beards in the industry. Maybe Vince is going to try to buy AEW. I don't think that's going to happen. Obviously, Tony's not going to want to have anything to do with Vince, and that would just be absolutely bad PR anyway. It just doesn't make any sense. And I don't think Tony wants to give this thing up unless he's just incurring massive debt that we don't know about. He just doesn't want to piss off his daddy. That said, the Shane element of it, how realistic do you think that is? And is that a good idea at all? He's not damaged goods like Vince. He was the one that kind of always was outside and doing his own thing. So there isn't all he was probably around when these things happen. He's seen it. Like he really wasn't around that often, like the last 20 years. So, but having that McMahon element, what Shane is, he's a name. Like, is that a move AEW should consider if this at all is possible?
Yeah, man, this is such a complicated issue, man. Yeah, I really agree with you that the Vince thing is a non-starter. I don't think Tony. If there's anybody in the world that Tony would not sell to, it would be to Vince McMahon. I think he'd rather just hand it over to anybody but that. That being said, Shane is interesting for a lot of the reasons that you said. He was always kind of an outsider, an outlier to that entire McMahon empire. Even when Stephanie was very involved with the company, Shane wasn't so much. When Shane would come back, he really felt like more of a talent than kind of anything else. And he did have a lot of goodwill, at least for a lot of time. Kind of wore out his welcome a little bit at the end towards the best in the world stuff. As funny as that was, people were just like, all right, we get it. But like, Shane would be an interesting mix in there. What complicates things is the last name. Having the McMahon name associated with anything other than WWE, yes, it brings attention to AEW. But with everything that's going on with Vince, I'm not sure it's the right kind of attention. Even though Shane is kind of, separated from that, and but they're not necessarily involved with what his crazy dad was doing. But it kind of reeks of desperation, one, and two, just associating themselves with the McMahon name is something that it seems like WWE has been avoiding. Like, Stephanie made an appearance at WrestleMania, and there's really no reason why she couldn't be more involved now. But that hasn't happened, and at least to me, just speculating, that feels like just trying to keep the McMahon name out of everything until kind of everything dies down. So I doubt AEW would want to bring any of that heat over to them, even if it is with Shane. It just seems like such a risky move that might not pay the dividends that they're hoping for.
Everything you said makes sense. But if you've been watching AEW, you people have been watching AEW for the last couple of years, the decisions Tony Khan makes don't make sense sometimes. It just doesn't make sense. Bringing Rob Van Dam in a bunch of times didn't make a lot of sense. Bringing Ric Flair back probably didn't make a lot of sense. Having what's this guy? The guy from Ring of Honor that his brother unfortunately passed away. What's this guy's name?
Oh, Mark Briscoe.
Yeah, having him like main matches, just it doesn't make sense. Having a half full arena and not seeing a problem doesn't make a lot of sense. Having some of the lowest ratings you've had in 2 years and going, everything's great, we're doing fantastic, we're having the best time of our life, doesn't make sense. And if you've watched, your previous person that's watched AEW, you see that Tony just likes playing with toys that he used to watch, and he used to have these fans. He's a fan of these people and their toys. He likes to bring them in, and he just likes to use them. And they're cool and they're fun for a little while. And then he doesn't know what to do, but he still likes playing with toys. There would be an appeal to Tony about, oh man, Shane McMahon's working for me. The son of Vince McMahon's working for me, and he wants to be a part of it. He's young. He's like, he's not old. He's not a damaged goods. He shouldn't, but I can totally see him do it because he just likes playing with I got a McMahon. Oh, we got the McMahon brand. Running Chris Jericho out there at 53, still in a main role. Does make sense. There's so many things that he's been doing. This is the guy, Booker of the Year, which I thought was a joke before, but so many things he was doing was smart. And now there's just a bunch that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to say right now, Shane McMahon's going to be in AEW. I'll say third quarter of 2024, Shane McMahon's going to make his debut. This is going to be no setup. He's just going to show up at an event. He's going to go to the top of the stage, look at Tony, stare, and walk commercial. That's what's going to happen.
Lord knows your crystal ball has been right this year more often than it's been wrong. And that's a wrinkle I didn't really think about now that you mentioned it, man. The fact that Tony Khan would be able to say that he's a boss of a McMahon, just to have that under his belt, that might be enough for him to hire him just for that.
Yep,
to think about.
Booker of the Year, the fans showering him with love just because it was so unfrustrated with WWE. It inflated his ego to a level that he's lost a sense of reality, and it's just, yeah. Oh, Shane, yeah, Shane would be a great ad. No, he wouldn't, but he would do it. So it's just how ridiculous it is. Moving on from something that doesn't make sense to something that shouldn't make sense, but has been so damn good. And that is, we talked about a few weeks ago, and that is the Wyatt Sicks. Now, we talked about a month or so ago, that, man, they were stretching this thing out like string cheese about trying to they're going to give these QR codes and all these things and these hints and all these things. They finally debut. They killed, they slaughtered the backstage area, all these things. And again, just, God, I don't want to seem like just a total WWE homer. I mean, I grew up with the product, but I got to give credit where it's due. One of the things that always killed me about AEW is you have someone like Daniel Bryan or CM Punk or whoever come in, and like I said, they debut, stand on stage, look at somebody, okay, we got to have a fight, and then leave. There's no vignettes, there's no setup. This is a tough set of characters to put into WWE right now, where they're reportedly trying to be more realistic. They're trying to get us away from supernatural. This is a hard thing to throw into the mix right now, everything they got going on. So instead of just throwing them in there and doing weird things, they're we're just going to set them up as best as possible. We're going to tell a story. They've been doing this thing with the Nikki Cross comes out of nowhere while they're terrorizing Chad Gable. She gives the old VHS. We watch the videos, and Jesus, these vignettes have been fantastic. I mean, this is some of the best vignettes since the days of Razor Ramon and Mr. Perfect, just telling a story, setting up a character, and then leaning in I mean, the first video of these 3 videos that they had until we record this, like saying like, oh, are you living off of your brother's, history, and why are you doing this? And like, I want to be like my brother, just setting it up and leaning into, yeah, this guy's his brother, and we're playing off of the Bray Wyatt stuff, and why are we doing it? And then you get this moment on Raw this past week where Adam Pearce goes to his office and then just Bo's sitting there. And like that too, he's just not a guy in a mask and he's a mystery man. No, he's Bo Dallas. We're not insulting the fans. The fans know who he is. The fans know who his brother is. That's just another dark element of him that we're going to see progress more. But he's in his regular self, Bo Dallas. Like, my God, I can't remember any time where Bo Dallas was this cool. I didn't watch him in NXT when he's champion. I didn't care. Like, I hated Bo leave. This guy's so cool right now. And I did a story on Ringside like 5-6 months ago. Sami Zayn said he was hoping a guy like Bo would get a chance to prove himself because he's one of the most talented people he's ever met. And we're seeing it. It's true.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Wyatt Sicks so far and how they've handled their, presentation and debut onto the company?
Oh, come on, man. You're telling me you were in a Bo lever when he was running around the ring? And
No, I was.
Come on now. Yeah, no, 100% with you on this, man. We talked about how, we were worried that it was, kind of extending it a little bit too long. People were losing interest. Finally, the debut came, and it has been tremendous. Like a weekly highlight of Monday nights every single week. The vignettes have been fantastic. Their debut just knocked it out of the park. And to your point, I love that they're not separating, Uncle Howdy is Bo Dallas and Bo Dallas is Uncle Howdy. Like, seeing Bo Dallas just sitting in Adam Pearce's office. There you go. Little less, controversial how that went.
It was on last night, so it's in my head right now.
It's good times. You know what I mean? Everybody should check it out. But yeah, just seeing Bo Dallas sitting in Adam Pearce's office, just adds so much intrigue without saying a word. And would have never thought that Bo Dallas would be this interesting. And here it is.
Yes.
They really have knocked it out. And it was a huge act to follow, huge shoes to fill with Bray. Bray was, absolutely tremendous at all of this. He had everybody in the palm of his hand. His vignettes were second to none. His character work, everything about it. So, the worries about Bo being a shade of that or not being able to live up to that, at least for the time being, have subsided. Like, he really is delivering. The rest of the crew is delivering as well. Nikki has been tremendous and terrifying. Those jump scares get me every week. And it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. What role is Bo Dallas going to play? And who is he coming after? Because, I can't be the only one that's been noticing, like, yes, Chad Gable seems to be a target, but it also seems to be simultaneous with Jey Uso. So it could be a nice little misdirection to where, like, Jay's been the target the entire time. That'd be a awesome feud leading into SummerSlam if it's Jay, in the Wyatt Sicks. We'll see where it goes, but they have everybody captivated, and I can't wait, to see where this goes. They've knocked it out of the park so far.
I agree 1,000%. So I think that's a perfect note to end this episode of the Parts Unknown podcast. Please, again, like, share, subscribe. Let us know what you think of how the Wyatt Sicks has been handled and all the other topics we talked about, especially John Cena's upcoming retirement tour in 2025. But as always, I am Jason Burgos. He is Jose Maldonado. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye.